Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Terry and Olly Talk Teaching with me, Olly Furnival here in Kamakura, Japan, and my good friend and ex-colleague Terry Wood in London, England. How are you doing, Terry?
Very good, keeping warm. We've had a relatively cold winter. There's quite a lot of snow a week or so ago in different parts of Britain, not so much here in London, but it's been a chilly one. So wrapping up, getting a bit older
Good.
now, but wrapping up well, putting the layers
Yes.
on, all good.
Good. Yeah, it's
Yourself?
been yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, it's nice and cold in the morning and evenings here. It warms up in the daytime, but maybe the cloudless skies don't keep the heat in. So yeah, it's pretty and
Yeah,
the
well,
house is a lot colder here than back home. So
in your part of
yeah,
the world,
it's
by the
not too
time you
bad.
get to late March, it'll be about 80 degrees, won't it?
Yeah, it's
High
gonna warm up. It's
humidity and
gonna
all the
warm up.
rest of it.
Yeah, I like the winter. I like the winter.
Uh,
Cool. So, today's edition, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you a few things, a few of like the recent initiatives in education that
yeah,
you don't think either necessary or work that well. We'll let you
yeah,
talk, and then I'll maybe have a follow-up question, agree or disagree, and we'll move through a list of things that perhaps are getting your goat, as it were. So we're
yeah.
going to start off, Terry. I believe you're going to start off with overinflated senior leadership teams.
Yeah, I've always had an idea in my head that what works best is around about one senior member of the school, senior leadership team, for every, I don't know, 15 to 18 members of staff. Not
Right.
forgetting that you've got heads of department, heads of year, phase leaders, and all the other roles that people get, quite rightly. I think when you start to get away from that balance in the equation, it starts to go wrong. And that I've seen, without naming names, I've been to schools, secondary schools I'm talking about, obviously, which are bigger, in which there's probably 12 to 15 senior members of staff,
Yeah.
whether they be assistant heads, deputies, head. Sometimes you have a head and you have an associate head teacher and all sorts of things. And I know schools can justify. I just think that once you lose the balance um, between those in the trenches and those officers behind the trenches, that it doesn't work so well. It leads to a little bit of thinness in
Yes.
the experience of people that are considered to be senior leaders, so that they don't really have the depth of experience and knowledge when things go wrong or they need to help the people below them. And that but I'm all for promoting people on promise,
Yeah.
and obviously retaining them that way, because it's retention, certainly here in Britain, it may be the same in Japan, is a big, 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 big problem. Keeping hold of good people. So it's a way of keeping good people in, isn't it? And giving them a promotion and getting them involved in
Yes.
running the school if that's what they aspire to. But I think you can do it too early. There can be a lack of real depth of knowledge about the classroom. And, that can, for me, can lead to a little bit of alienation when you've got well established, let's say, heads of department uh, working well under difficult circumstances, running big departments and so on. And then they've got to kind of be line managed by somebody that they feel hasn't got the same level of experience in the profession, particularly in the classroom in general. So it's just a general sense I get that um, in trying to retain people, the senior leadership teams are growing too large. Just to finish off before you come back at me, I go back to a time in the early 90s when I was in a school in late 80s, early 90s, school in the northwest of England, where there was one head, strong head, there was two deputies, and there was a senior teacher. Right, the
Right.
senior teacher was the head of maths, very experienced, and he was kind of like almost like a consigliere for the Italian mafia. He was there to
Right.
just give advice and give the staff's point of view. There was four of them for a school of 1,000 kids and maybe
Wow.
65 teachers. I don't know, and that worked. They worked hard, but it worked because they were seen as special, and they were
Right.
above us to enough of a degree that we would, even if we didn't occasionally like what they told us we had to do, we would respect that separation. And because they were very small in number, does that all make sense?
Yeah, it certainly does. And yeah, I take a lot of points there. I believe, yeah, there's a lot of people, excuse me, in education and in all walks of, I suppose, employment where they want to be seen as doing well, and maybe it's not enough just to be seen as a great teacher. People
Yeah,
want a position attached to that, and yeah, it can come too early for some. And yeah, and if it does, and we're I take your point on some of those positions where I think we've been both in some of these positions where you've got your head of department really in the trenches doing all the work, and then they've got to perhaps report upwards to someone who hasn't got the experience of doing that.
yeah,
Problems can arise. So I certainly would advocate people going through the steps rather than perhaps what you might be alluding to as some jumping too far too quickly. In the school I work at, I'm in an international baccalaureate division, so we do things slightly differently. But in the main school divisions, when people become leadership, it's for 2 year periods.
right,
And it's quite normal in the school for someone to do 2 years as head of year, for example, or head of student affairs or school affairs, which are the names that the school give in English. And then and then the head of division would say, "Thank you very much. You're stopping now. You've done that, whether you've done
yeah.
badly or well," and it just gets swapped over. Whereas in schools I worked in England, you kind of have that position, and unless you're doing really badly, then that's your position. So, I mean, how do you feel about maybe like in the school I work at, there's a bigger turnover of SLT leaders? How do you think that would go down if it was almost
I can see the rationale behind it. The only thing that would concern me was that there's, a bit like football managers at
yeah,
Premiership clubs, there's no stability, and then there's a new set of
yeah,
ideas, and a new set of ideas, and a new set of ideas, depending on the level of responsibility they're given. I think it's a hard one to get right. I think interestingly, because you're talking about 2 year time period, it goes back to probably what is education, schools' biggest problem worldwide, which is retention within
yeah,
the profession. Because of my role in training, I know that recruitment is still it's difficult, but it's still people are still coming through. It's still healthy in that regard, but retention is the big problem. So that underpins it.
yeah.
What I mean, what's is there a kind of general structure in Japan in let's say in the non-baccalaureate system?
Mm.
What would be the average high school kind of hierarchy system over there?
Yeah, so you'd have the homeroom team, and on the up the partial side, you'd then have head of year, who would then be the next one up would be head of student affairs, and on the curriculum side, you'll have the head of curriculum, who would then
Yeah,
above them be head of school affairs and director of teaching and learning, and all of those fall under the head of division.
yeah.
So in this system of 2 years, it doesn't have to be you change every 2 years, but every 2 years they will decide whether or not you change. And actually, we've given some pushback against it in our division because, as I think you've said, you build someone up with the skills, and then suddenly, oh, we'll let someone else have a go. Well, hang on a minute. I'd rather keep them in position because they've only been doing it two or so years, and I'd rather keep the skill base there. And also,
Actually, sorry to interrupt. Just occurred to me
that's all
that
right.
my analogy was the wrong one. Premiership football clubs. It's more like ministers in government, isn't it?
Right, that's true.
Constantly giving
Yeah,
them a new ministerial position before they've
yeah,
even grasped the fundamentals of the previous one in reshuffles. It's not dissimilar to
yeah.
that, is it?
No. And the funny thing in Japan is that it's what I've had to talk to my bosses about. I said, well, if I have someone and on their CV it says they were assistant head or something for 2 years, and then they're back to teaching, they're going to be asked, well, why, what went wrong? But in Japan or the school I'm at, it's not seen as something that went wrong. It's just seen you've done that
Yeah,
for a couple of years, and then so I'm saying, well, our teachers generally are going back into the international pot. So yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of just different ways of doing it. Um, but I think one way I'd agree with you, if a leadership team is too big, it can create confusion in lines of authority and who asks what, and people treading on each other's toes. I've had to deal with that a little bit in my context as well over the years, where we've had to say, well, we need some real clear descriptions of who do you go to where, because it can get too blurred otherwise, and people will then go to someone if they don't get the answer they want off someone else. And I've seen that in
Yeah,
more than one school
yeah.
where that's, a too big a SLT that aren't all knowing what the other one's doing can cause problems there.
And that is like current Premiership football clubs. That is
Certainly.
exactly, that's where they come in. So I kind of agree, that there's got to be limits on these things. People will, that in those positions could give us very good. We need to get somebody from a senior leadership team on, and they can give us all the contrary things we need to hear. But I think we both agree there's a limit to this, and you can go too far. I just think some schools do. I think many still get it right, but I think there's just being pushed a bit too
Mm,
far.
yes, yes. And
So that's that
I
one.
mean, yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's move on. And next, I think you'd like to discuss this, which is I've never experienced, is this longer half-term break in
Yeah,
October.
yeah. I'd say it's about 50, I mean, up to about 50% of schools now, primary and secondary, are going for this. Well, we're back in September, and then October half term rolls around. It used to be 1 week.
Yeah.
Let's make it 2 weeks, or the best part of 2 weeks. And then let's gerrymander the timetable so there's an extra hour, let's say on a Wednesday, or mess around, finish later in July, or
Ah,
because you've got to teach your 160 in
yes,
the British system, you're 165 days in the
yes.
state system. We're not talking about private schools here; they do less, obviously. But what I don't get, I'm all for doing the best for your staff and your kids.
Yeah,
Why 2 weeks in October? You've just got back, you're just getting momentum up, and
yeah,
then you're going to let the kids go away from school for 2 weeks and drop that momentum. That's the first argument. When I was a teacher, I was always desperately keen, if you were going to have an extra week, worked out to have it at Christmas for number one. One, because
yes.
you're tired, a long, hard term. Here in Britain, particularly, it's dark, the days are short, you've got lots of family commitments and travel, Christmas and all of that. That extra week is more needed than it is in October. I'd also argue that if I wanted to have another extra week rather than October, it would be as part of the Easter holiday. The
Yeah,
world is opening up, the weather is improving, there's lots of sporting and cultural events. People are getting, particularly thinking here in Britain, maybe slightly less so in Japan, but still the case. People are getting outside more because there is such an improvement in light and temperature. So why not the extra week there? So I just don't get the 2 weeks in October. I think it's allocating time in the wrong part of the year. That's my thinking. What do you think about that?
yes, I certainly agree with the big push at the start of a school year. I think obviously things would turn around, but the first term is a good term to get a lot done. I'm talking like 2 year exam programs
Yeah,
specifically here. Obviously afterwards, after Christmas, you've suddenly got mocks, you've got coursework, you've got revision periods. It kind of breaks up a little bit. So I
yeah,
think September through to December is a real good time. And look, I'm all for giving teacher as you are, healthy lifestyle, well-being.
yeah.
But I think a 1 week half term is in fact 9 days if you
Yeah,
put the weekends onto
it
both.
is.
And I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I think that's enough. It could be schools maybe. Well, I'll ask you in a minute. Want to add in a couple of long weekends as well. But I've worked in a school where we both worked where we did once to get the 1 day Christmas shopping and we kind of paid for that with extra hours on a Wednesday for 5 weeks and it
yeah.
wasn't much fun. It was like always yeah
No,
to make so I think shuffling it around, making it worse elsewhere isn't going to have the payoff. You're going to make the staff tired again quickly if you're doing extra meetings to make up for that. So is there any other design you could think of in the first term to get healthier or to keep spirits up in the first term rather than an extra week, which does seem a
I
lot
mean
to me?
the other thing that used to be, and it still kind of exists, and they kind of tie it into the kind of that thing that's from America called Black Friday. In late November,
Yeah,
kind of Thanksgiving time, shopping day, sales. Well, we used to have the Christmas shopping day, didn't we?
yeah,
That was held right at the end of November or very early December, usually at the end of November, making it usually a long weekend, something like that. We just when people were really flagging, there was always that sense, wasn't there, that November's Groundhog Day. In that, if you look at the calendar, the British calendar is the
yeah,
only month of the year, actually, in which you're in for pretty much every day,
Right.
depending on when the holidays are. That
Yeah.
and it's darker and it's colder and it's
Yeah.
wetter, and Christmas seems
Yeah.
a long way away. So just having that long weekend would be enough. You could
Yeah. I
turn it to
think
4 days if you wanted to, but I don't. I'm just uncomfortable with the idea that just when you're up and running, you're then having a 2 week break, just when momentum's being built.
yeah.
And we've got
Well,
to. We I know we're in a kind of an enclosed position here, but we're both cognizant of the way the teaching profession is seen from the outside, whether for
yeah.
right or wrong. We know that people don't think the same as we do about
Yeah.
our profession, often for the wrong reasons, sometimes for the right reasons. And we're just giving them an easy win. Oh, you've
Yeah.
only just gone back. You've got 13 weeks off a year and you're having another one. I think it's playing into that sort of thinking myself. Parents have got to, and then you've got some kids that are in school, the
Mm.
50% of schools that are not having, and then 50% are. So you've got parents that have got kids in different schools because of age
Well,
differences,
exactly.
and how they're going to supervise that. It just causes a lot of problems for me that I just don't
Yeah.
I don't see what's being gained. That's it.
No, you took the words out of my mouth about impact on families. I mean, a week probably easier, a few days with the grandparents, friends swapping, etc. But 2 weeks then it's probably quite big on families, probably younger with younger kids as well. But I think the key you've hit it on the head is momentum. I think 2 weeks is too long. In the
Yeah.
middle of you've just done what, 6 weeks at school
Well,
after 6 weeks off, bang.
that's
As I
six
said,
weeks off. I mean, everybody likes to have a 6 week holiday, don't they?
yeah,
Let's be honest. But that kids can go backwards in that 6 weeks
it's a
quite
long time.
significantly,
It's a
and
long
then you're
time.
just building it up again, and then you're off for 2 weeks. It just doesn't. The balance doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Which is why I scratch my head when I see schools going through.
I would I would say the answer, I'd get rid of that and I would do maybe a couple of 3 day weekends.
Yeah,
Japan doesn't have as many holidays in state schools as Britain, but it has 12 we call them national
yeah,
holidays, 12 bank holidays when teachers are teaching. So
yeah.
that's good. And it's just nice to have almost one a month. Sometimes you get more, and some are in holidays like New Year, etc. But it's around about one a month when you're going to have a 4 day week, and that that
That's,
that makes a big difference. So
I think that's a
yeah,
better system. That
yeah, I think
sounds far more sensible to me.
yeah, 2 weeks in October. I agree with you. Put that into room 101.
Yeah.
Um, okay, next I think you'd like to raise lineups.
Yeah, well, let's explain what lineups are for those that don't know. It's where 2 or 3 times, maybe after breaks, start the day, after breaks, after lunch, etc. 3 or 4 times a day, the whole school or half a school will line up in the yards or the outside spaces, whatever the weather,
Yep,
and the teachers will corral them into lines and do registers, and the head of year will shout at them, and it's to set standards before then going into the building and into classrooms. And that's fine as an emergency measure if the kids' behaviour on the corridors or getting on time to lessons. Talking secondary here, this is not a primary thing, of course.
sure.
Though some will do that. If there's a particular problem at a particular time, and then knock it on the head with this extreme measure, get all the school together with the head teacher talking at them, and then send them in quietly with all the teachers on the corridors. I get that, but I go to schools where year after year after year, I go back and they're still doing lineups. And
Right.
I'm like, one, how much time is being wasted from learning? Because by the time you've got them corralled, quietened down, talked at, walking, big schools, up and down, you're losing, let's say, an hour's lesson. You might be losing 10 to 12, certainly 5 to 6 minutes.
Yeah,
And every minute counts. Every
yeah,
minute counts.
yeah,
So I don't get that. Two, I think you're making a rod for your own back because you get 1,000 kids together. That, unless you've got very, very, very strong staff, individual form tutors and heads of year and so on, kids will muck about and waste time and take ages to be quiet. Then you get the teachers standing on benches shouting at them, and they've got quiet voices that nobody can hear. There's no megaphone, there's no amplification. And I'm going, they can't hear you. You're shouting at them and getting
yeah,
upset. They can't hear you. You haven't got a big enough voice. Anyway, there's that. But the bigger point for me is, what are we teaching them? When
Right.
are those kids, as they do in most schools, many and most, going to realize I have to get to lesson on time and I have to move around the corridor given a set of reasonable rules sensibly and efficiently? Now, many schools achieve that with staff out on the corridors outside their classrooms and so on. No time wasted, giving the kids a sense of responsibility and allowing them to grow up a little bit
Yeah.
more quickly than corralling them on every occasion possible, as if they're kind of, all miscreants who are bound to misbehave on their way to lessons. That's the multiple reasons why, apart from an emergency procedure now and again, it does not work. Over to you.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think if you keep doing the same thing and you're repeatedly having to,
And it's not
as you
improving, yeah.
say, tell students off because they're not doing it properly, then it's not working, is it? Who are we doing this for? For the adults or for the students? I think, yeah, that big lineup, as I say, even it's hard because if you've got 1,000 there, you've still got two at the back having a bit of a giggle, then the form tutor roars in and I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've been part of it, and you feel as a homeroom teacher, form tutor, you've got to show that it doesn't happen in your form, and then that can create an escalation of some student then answering back, and then it all falls apart. And as you say, it's happening in learning time. I would much prefer what I do. I get my students to line up outside of class every lesson.
Yeah.
I'm the only one. I enforce this with our new grade sixes, year sevens. We call them grade six here, just to get them in order at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year. But it's not a lineup outside; it's outside of the classroom. But I do it because I want to say hello to every student coming in the classroom, and I
Yeah.
make sure
Yeah.
every student
Yeah.
answers me back. It's just a
Yeah.
little thing I've got, and also between
Important.
it's different than in England because the kids are allowed in classrooms in a 10-minute break between lessons. So for me, it's that's over. Get outside, line up, bang, in we go. So I don't mind doing that, but getting a whole school line up outside, it's also the time it takes to get that done for
Mhm.
a couple of minutes of, as you say, a bawling head teacher. And I've been there with, rubbish speakers that don't work and then to get them back. And it's like, well, what's been gained with nothing? Not much, not
The
much.
other thing that it does, it really does hinder the most keen and able. Those kids, which are
Exactly.
still the majority, who want to get to the classroom and learn,
Who are
and
you doing it for?
they're
Yeah.
being punished despite the fact they're angels. They're not going to mess around on the corridor. When they want to get to the lesson, they don't want to be on the corridor with the
Yeah.
other kids. They want to get in the room with the teacher and learn. It also takes away the kind of what I'm constantly telling teachers: the first 5 minutes is the most crucial, as we know.
God,
Five
yes.
minutes of any lesson, making that first impression, getting the set established, getting
Yeah.
momentum going and focus and all of that, getting engagement going. And when you have older kids, so let's say key stage 4 and 5 particularly, you want to be there early because they're
Yeah.
missing out on something. I always say to teachers, make your first 5 minutes really sing, whatever system you're using that the school wants you to or you're independent with. The kids want to be there because it's not about being punished for not being there. They know they're missing out on something.
Yeah.
Well, you take that away too because they're all
Yeah.
coming into the room at the same time. So in many different ways, apart from in emergency circumstances to re-establish control
Yeah.
over the school population, it does not work. There's too many negatives, and it astounds me when I go back year after year after year to the same schools, and they are still doing it, even with maybe a new head. Weird.
Yeah. And I think the easiest fix, as you said earlier, uh, not just senior leadership, but teachers out in the corridor because
Um,
it works. It genuinely works. Teachers in the corridor, tuck your shirt in, hello, whatever,
yeah,
bang, bang,
yeah,
bang. It's efficient, and I encourage that in my school.
yeah,
Get out in
yeah,
the corridor,
absolutely.
get yourself known, get the respect. Cool.
Okay.
Okay. What about partner talk?
Yeah, well, it's given different names, isn't it? It's called partner talk,
Right.
turn and talk, paired discussion. And you see this
Yeah.
all the way up from the little tiny tots in, not quite reception, but let's say year one, all the way up to sixth form, all lessons, all the time. There's this thing built into the profession now here in Britain, certainly, where to cover debate and discussion, turn and talk to your partner about this thing, or ask each other questions, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's the reason I put it in this list is it's not in itself a bad thing. Of course, debate and discussion and listening to each other and responding, that's all part of the child's development and very important. But it's just so badly and lazily done in so many cases. Kids will, there's some that will engage at a very high level with it and confidently, fluently. But there's many that just cannot. When the teacher says turn and talk, they're like, I don't know how to do this. Who
No.
starts? How do we conduct it? They're not adults yet. They haven't got the syntax to as you and I are doing now on different
Exactly.
sides of the world. They haven't got the ability yet to be able to conduct discussion. How do we do this? Who starts? How do I respond? How do I
Yep.
disagree? How do I ask a supplementary question? You
Yeah.
know, so I find myself constantly saying, you're just ticking a box. And I
Yeah.
look at the kids and I can see that 20 or 30% of them are engaging really well. The rest are they're sitting there looking at their hands and waiting for it to finish. And this is more so the case in secondary than primary, I've got to say. Primary school kids will usually, do it better, to be honest, because they're young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they know no better. And I'll often say to teachers, what you want to do, you might be the first in the school to do it, model what good discussion looks like.
Nah.
You sit down
Yeah.
with a child and do the turn and talk, the part and talk, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, and have the whole class standing around, and
Yeah.
you be one of the pupils, and this other kid who's chosen because they're particularly confident and bright and talk well, then you model what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just throwing away. Oh, well, let's have another minute to turn and talk. Let's have another minute to turn and talk. It's just dead time in which the kids are not making any progress. And again, I'm not aligning all teachers and all classrooms. In just too many cases, it's just slack, lazy teaching, in my opinion. Over to you.
Interesting. Now, I am trying to finish. I've been trying for over a year now to write about this because what one of the biggest peeves I have in my career is poor group work. Some of
Yeah,
it you've just explained, but others where teachers go, oh, go on, off you go in groups, and you've got kids not knowing what they're doing and not there's no need for the group activity.
yeah,
What's this partner talk for? Why are
yeah,
you doing it?
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, what I don't like, you see that, and then the kids not using their partner's ideas, or if it's a four. I've seen in my career, teacher a group of four in fours. They all did their own ideas, all on a whiteboard, mini whiteboard. Then the teacher didn't ask them to do anything with it, and they all rubbed it off and then did the next activity. And that's no need for that to happen.
yeah,
All you've got to have is a little bit of initiative. So what I do, and I do think, pair, share, or however we call it, I'll say to student A, tell me what does student B say? Or I'll say to student A,
pressure.
give me an argument against student
Yeah,
B. It's just
exactly.
actually make it a point to talking.
Yeah,
And it's so easy. I'll make a bit of fun. I'll say, okay, student A, here's what student A says, here's what student B says. Then I'll brainstorm follow up questions that you could ask. And then I'll say, student A in pairs is a person that lives furthest away from the school or who's got the longest hair. Make them work it out who's A and B so they know what they're doing. And then you've got to actually do something with it. And
yeah,
it really does irritate me when I see, as you said, laziness. I'll just talk in pairs. Right, I've got 5 minutes to do whatever, and then we just ignore it. It's so easy as well for the brighter kids say, okay, I'm going to give you your answer now. You're going to answer from the position of a local businessman. You're going to be a farmer or whatever you're teaching, or you're going to just agree or disagree with whatever you hear. So just add little bits of adaptation to it. Even with the ones you said about the weaker kids, give them their answer and let the other kid respond to it. It doesn't
yeah,
really matter. So yeah, there's so much you can do with that, and it's such a nice little activity. But I think I think group work, pair work is a weakness from my career, what I've seen as well. So
yeah.
yeah,
You've
I
obviously
agree with
thought
you on this.
even more deeply than I have, and are still delivering, which I'm not. I'm watching, but
Oh,
yeah. So you probably have lots of ideas that would really benefit teachers in that regard. Because it's such an important
again,
thing to
yeah,
educate and train kids to discuss and debate and listen to
yeah,
each other. I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but particularly boys, they don't find it as easy. they're not. You know, I see this time and again where you have girl groups of whatever
Yeah.
age, really. They're much better at it. They know they have more facial expressions. There's more
Mm.
non-verbal communication. They listen better. It's more a female strength. Let's not kid
Yeah.
ourselves. Not in all cases, obviously, but it tends to be. And men and boys are not as good at it. And I see this time and time again. A group of four boys sat in a row, not even looking at each other,
Yeah.
and you know they're just shouting over each other because they don't know what they're supposed to
No,
do. And it's a shame because it's such an important thing they need to
it
grasp. And
is.
when you see them in boy and girl groups, then the dynamic changes,
Yeah.
and that's
No,
very
grouping,
important
grouping, absolutely
they're saying
vital.
in reducing that often immature boy voice that we know certainly at key stage 3 and key stage 4 can start to be a problem.
I mean, for me, the reason I thought about it so much is not from what I've seen of others, but just that when I started teaching, when we were at the same school, I was doing a citizenship, a humanities subject where I needed a lot of this. And it was a big shock to me at the start of my career where a lot of kids either didn't want to do it or couldn't do
Yeah,
it or weren't interested. So I had to do it to respond. Otherwise, I'd have 30 kids and at half were doing it and half weren't. So I've had to show initiative. And yeah, I think that's listen, everyone who's listening, I'm writing on this, and maybe in a
yeah.
1 or 2 episodes time, we can talk about my my advice, good or not, on it. But yeah, totally think it's vital.
Yeah, so I'm not talking about throwing it out because that's ridiculous, but it
No,
definitely needs one of the things I see that needs the most work. So that's not going to go into
us,
Route 101, but
no.
it definitely needs across the whole profession, I would suggest, a shot in the arm. Get
It does,
tired.
and it does, and that in all kinds of group work,
Yeah,
especially in something like we, us being humanities teachers, some students need the pair work to feel safer in advocating their viewpoint. Because if they're suddenly saying something that's linked to a belief and they're saying it on their own, having spoken to a partner first and then you're representing two people is a really easy way to get students talking about
yeah,
difficult conversations or difficult
yeah,
topics. So it can work very well for students, but if it's not done properly, it's just a waste of time.
yeah, absolutely.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, vertical tutoring.
Yeah. Now, vertical tutoring, of course, again, to explain to the uninitiated, is rather than having year group form groups, which has been the standard since time began, is let's say in the secondary school, you've got years 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, let's say 11 to
Yeah.
16, forget about sixth formers, and have form groups that are a mixture, a few kids from each year group with
Mm.
one form tutor. And the idea is, of course, that it's supposed to socialize the kids. The older kids are supposed to look after and buddy the other kids,
Yeah.
pastorally and academically. And the younger kids are learning from the good example set by the older kids and getting to understand about exams and all of that. So
Yeah.
on paper, brilliant idea, and it's got many strengths. Having experienced it and having been a vertical tutor myself, it's got lots of significant flaws, and the most significant flaw is it's only as good as the form tutors who are running it, who are in charge. You've got to
Yeah.
be incredibly flexible, strong, knowledgeable, and able to pull a very disparate, diverse group together, managing the needs of all of those kids, the exam kids at the top end, the kind of the changes required in schooling coming from primary into secondary at the bottom end,
Yeah.
the kind of the difficulties that happen when kids start to get into years 8 and 9 with adolescence and so on, social media, all of that stuff. It's when you've got one age group in one form,
Yeah.
yes, that has its own pitfalls and difficulties and limitations, but you have a much narrower focus on the needs of a group of kids as you move through the school with them, getting to know them better. But the other problem with the vertical tutoring is you'd start off with the year 11 kids and the year 10, the year 9, the year 7. And within a year, the oldest kids have gone.
Yeah.
So what is the continuity? That some of them are just biding their time until they leave. So they're already, psychologically on the fringes. So in many, many different ways, it's one of those things that look good on paper, and I'm sure he's done wonderfully well in many schools that have prioritized it and resourced it and thought a lot about it. But if it's done just ticking boxes, and I've seen that happen, it's not good at all. You get some really difficult older characters who are giving the younger kids the worst examples.
Yep.
And it just does, for example, and it just doesn't hang together. And I think
Yeah.
that's why, although many schools still try it, most, I think, fail. What do you think?
Well, when we were working at our first school, we went into it, and luckily for me, it happened when my form left school, and then it
Mm,
came in, and I was anti it because I'd loved that day one to the final day, going
yeah,
through everything
yeah.
with the students. So I was,
And you were a particularly avid and strong form tutor. It's one of your great strengths, wasn't it?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely, thank you. Yeah, definitely one of my
It was.
passions.
It
So,
was.
um, so it took a while, and you're right. When I first got the form, the older ones didn't always have the buy-in. They'd probably built relationships with a form tutor. So,
Yeah.
in any school, it's going to be difficult at first. I saw some benefit. I didn't mind it. I only did it for 3 years in that school. By the time it ended, I definitely molded them where I wanted to be. And look, it was a comprehensive. We had everyone in the form, good,
Yeah.
bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
Some took to it very well. I saw some real good examples of kids looking out for each other, kids helping each other. Not all students took to it, but then again, not all those students
Yeah.
take to form time anyway, and
Yeah.
particularly
Yeah.
interested in that part of the pastoral side of school. So I think I think it does have positives, but I think you're going to have to be a good form tutor. You're going to have to, which I actually didn't mind doing, but you're going to have to deal with a kid in grade 7 who's come in having their ear pierced over the summer and has got a problem, to a student in year 10 who's got a problem with work experience, to someone who you need extra revision practice, all these ins and outs, all these different stages of growing up.
Yeah.
It's a big job, as you say, and I think if you're a form tutor that's not that bothered, then I think it could
All strong.
cause
Yeah.
you problems, and it can cause problems within the year group. It can cause cliques. It can cause people who are buying in and some who are not. Who I think role models very important. I do a lot in my school now. We do a lot of cross grade level work, not in form times, but in things like international days and charity weeks, etc.
Yeah.
However, if you don't have the buy-in in the form and you don't have the form tutor, then I can see vertical tutoring can probably cause more problems quicker than traditional tutoring if it's not done properly. I definitely take that point.
Yeah.
Um,
So
what do
it's kind
you?
of it's hovering over room 101, isn't it? Unless it's done
Yes,
really, really carefully
it's
with
got to
all
be
the
done
right
very
people.
carefully.
And
But then again,
I don't think it's certainly in the school that we experienced it. I think that was definitely not the case.
I think, yeah, I think I've seen the school I worked in. I saw good form tutors carry on being good form tutors, and
Yeah.
other ones didn't change. And I don't think the school itself really told the students why we're doing it. There
Yeah.
can be quite, as I say, a bit of pushback at the beginning.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's important. I mean, I don't know what would you say in your experience of going to schools? What's the main problem schools are trying to solve by bringing in vertical tutoring? Or is it just looking at the positives of, look, we can have good role models and we're building leadership, etc.?
I think for me, that's the main raison d'etre for doing it in each
Right.
case where I've experienced it. It's still very much the minority because people, understand the problems we've just discussed. It's no beyond that. It's not. It's kind of ideological, really, rather than practical. Because I think schools know inherently all the problems we've just discussed. They're not going to be big
Yeah.
surprises to anybody. Any senior leader joining us on this conversation would say, "Yeah, we know all of that." So it does tend to be ideological, and I don't
One
mind
thing,
that because schools that have it as an ideal and then really work it well,
yeah,
fantastic. You're probably going to achieve some profound things
yeah,
beyond what can be achieved in schools where it's kind of horizontal tutoring. So more power to them, but I just think
yeah.
that's rarely the case.
Well, I think just a couple of points. Yeah, I do agree. Vertical can be good. I really enjoyed. We used to do weekly debates, and really nice to see different age groups talking with different experiences.
Yeah,
My daughter was in a vertical tutoring school, and she was yeah, she really enjoyed the leadership opportunities, and I think her form tutors told me she did do well for that. One thing I remember though, when we were in the school, was the kind of breakdown of the role of the head of year. It kind of got a bit blurred.
yeah,
The strong headed year that gets all the year group together, as you say, in different times and different needs. If in a vertical tutoring, depending on how it's done, you can kind of blur that because you go. We also brought in houses, and it was all a little bit blurred about for a student. Because I
mm,
really think good head of year 7, 8, 9, whatever is really an
yeah,
important role.
yeah,
So I do remember seeing that being blurred by the vertical tutoring.
yeah. So as I say, hovers over the track
Hover it,
into 101, but for me, it's in there because I just
yeah.
think it doesn't work in all but a very, very small number of cases.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And I say I've done both. I enjoyed both. If I had to do one for the rest of my career, I'd go horizontal
Yeah,
over
yeah,
vertical, I think.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, okay, we've got a couple more on to Ofsted, Terry.
Yeah, it's not really Ofsted. Listen, you and I could sit for probably 2 hours and discuss the merits,
We
pros
will
and
do
cons
one
of
day.
Ofsted. And I do it, yeah, and I do accept the need for government scrutiny of schools. I'm not
Yeah,
anti-Ofsted as a concept. It's not even about the way Ofsted works and how that continues to change. It's more about schools' reaction to Ofsted.
right.
And the point I'm making is it's very, very easy when a head teacher and a senior leadership team and governors know that Ofsted, whatever its latest iteration, is on its way. It's easy for them to, if they're not strong, to lose focus. And I'm talking about schools that are good, have always been
Yeah,
good. Maybe in the past we're given the one word, you know, award of outstanding, let's say, or just one word, good. Nothing wrong with that. But what they start to do is they know it's hovering, and it takes up about 25 to 30% of their thinking bandwidth. So
yeah,
too much starts to be about, well, just in case Ofsted, well, just in case Ofsted. And it manifests in things like, you know, trying to generate far too much data, far
yeah,
too much marking that is not effective, marking just excessive, killing teachers, bewildering kids, too much testing, too much target setting for individuals that is then over rigorously checked, and then teachers having to do excessive interventions that are practical and impactful. All of those things, there's just a drifting away from the focus on teaching and learning in the classroom
mm,
and confidently saying, no, we believe in what we do. We're good at this. We're good with our kids. Our teachers will support them in the planning and delivery of lessons, which is still the essence of the job. It's hard not to get involved with those other things. Of course, you've got to tick those boxes.
yeah,
But it's only the strongest head teachers, in my experience, who resist the temptation to drift too far and
yeah,
say, yes, we've got to keep those things in mind, but our strengths are teachers, kids, classroom, love of learning. And that's at the end of the day, despite whatever the focus of Ofsted might be when they come in, that's still what they want to see. And that's still what will get us, good feedback. So
yeah.
it is definitely about the the inability often of senior leaders to resist the temptation to drift off the road simply because they know Ofsted's on the way.
Yeah. And I've been in schools, including with you, where I've seen a big change in staff morale before. The fear, the as you say, the extra work that is done for box ticking as well. I don't
It doesn't
like,
benefit and doesn't benefit the kids.
well, exactly. I don't think it's the best design for the system. In the International Baccalaureate, we have evaluations, and the difference is we know they're every 5 years, and
Oh,
and
yeah,
they'll come, and it's more on the school. What you do a self-study. They have their own standards and practices, same as the UK, England, and Wales.
yeah,
And you have to evidence. They've actually gone for less evidence, but you have to say where you are why you're there, and then you come and the school talk to you about it. And it's a lot different. There's far less. They don't come and grade teachers. They come and watch lessons and they'll talk to students. But it's not like I've got a 50-minute lesson here, or even, sometimes they come, inspectors come in less than that, far less than the whole lesson. I'm going to be
Yeah,
graded here. It's going to go to my head. It's going to go around the school. I'm excellent down to I need
yeah,
help on one lesson. And I'm not saying the IB1's perfect. It's a lot of work, but what you do is along the 5 years, you set yourself program development plans, and you say, okay, this is our goal. Here's how we're going to do it. And then when the IB come, they talk it through with you rather than we're going to hit you on the over the head with grading.
yeah,
There are some points where maybe it's a bit soft touch, you could argue, but I certainly think the design, from having been through a few in England. Yeah, I think that the fear there can make you do too much. The first IB, when I was a diploma program coordinator, my first evaluation, I did far too much, and I let slip that I'm from English school, and they said, "Well, you've obviously you've been through Ofsted before, haven't you? Because you're treating this like an Ofsted report, and this isn't the way it's done." And
yeah,
I just went too much because I thought you got to go to the nth degree because it's so important and it is how you look. So it can actually sadly end up teachers doing too much work for it and with bad consequences as well.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Without
it
doubt.
does
So,
need
so
looking
it's
at.
it's a tri- it's a it's a tricky one. It's a tricky
Yeah.
one. I mean, anecdotally, talking to somebody I know that had Ofsted only a week or so ago, their school did a lot of that sort of, target setting,
Yeah.
marking, testing, data stuff, covering all
Yeah.
the bases, making life quite difficult for the staff. It's a good school. And then when Ofsted came in, the end of like halfway through the first day, getting the kind of initial feedback as you get drifting through the school, the Ofsted were like, yeah, we weren't concerned about any of that. But what we do want you to do is we've gone when we've been into classrooms following a send kid, you know,
Yeah.
they pursue pupil pursuit. They follow a kid
Yeah.
around the school. The send kid isn't getting the same provision and support in each classroom. Sort that out. So by the afternoon of
Yeah.
the next day, they'd sorted it out. There was and they said, fine, thank you for that. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. Clearly, there should have been consistency in the support for
Yeah.
SEND, PP,
Yeah.
EAL kids as they go around the school. Well, and there probably is at that school because it was easily put right to suggest that that is the case.
Yeah.
But they drifted away from it and stopped in planning on a day-to-day organic level, stopped thinking about it to the degree that they used to, because it was all about the data for Ofsted. So that's exactly the sort of thing I'm talking about. And it
Exactly.
comes back to the final
Losing,
point.
losing
It's
the, losing the.
You've got to have strong-minded head teachers. That's what they're paid the money for, to try to
Yeah.
get to resist that temptation. I always
Yeah.
remember, we probably talked about this before, when I was doing my MPQH training, which I never got to the end of. I decided to go in a different direction. The training for headship many years ago, and there was a
Yeah.
super head, so called, that was helping us train, very successful guy, and he said he has two in kind of trays on his desk. One is in trays. One is
Yeah.
must do, cannot avoid, priority. He said the second one is I'll think about that, and if I can work around it and circumvent it and make it work for my people, I'll get to that next. And he said, and my third tray was the bin. My school isn't
Nice.
doing that. Now, obviously, you've got to be in a very strong position to achieve that. And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
quite a
Yeah.
long time ago, but I admired that. And I think
Yeah.
that's why he had got to the top, because he was tough enough to say, no, this is what's right for my kids and for my staff and for my school. And I'm going to resist the temptation to run the school off the road because a few people are coming in on behalf of the government for a day and a half soon.
Mm,
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. No, I think I think obviously I'm not in England now, but I think when I was there, it's gone too far. It's too much. It's too far. It would be nice to have a lot more preliminary checks about what we're looking for. Yeah, so it's not, I mean, for me, it was always, as you said at the beginning, they might be coming, they might be coming. And, we had in the old days we had when you thought it would come. So the schools on tenterhooks for a year, not doing as you say, taking our eye off the ball on send provision, and it's just
Yeah,
not healthy. I didn't think it's that healthy.
yeah.
Okay, final one for today then, which is a shock to me, and interesting to hear what you say on teacherless schools, Terry.
Yeah, I thought let's finish with a ridiculous one. I mean, thank God this is not something that's worldwide and spreading like wildflower. But it's wildfire, I should say. It's taken off in America. In some of those say the more progressive parts of America, so I think Southern California, Northern California, Austin, Texas, which are very progressive parts of the world. They've happened upon this idea that we don't need teachers. What we need is the best laptops we can get our hands on and
Yeah,
AI, and then sit the
brilliant.
kids on beanbags like they're kind of, employees at Google, and they'll just find their way through the curriculum. And we'll have technicians who are very highly trained representing or replacing the teachers, and it'll all go really well. Uh,
Nah,
right. Well, the big article, I think it was in the Sunday Times a few months ago on this, with this head teacher in this school in Austin justifying it. What annoyed me, because it's obviously patently nonsense.
yeah,
The very notion, I think even people that are kind of a bit anti-teachers, those cynics out there, or you teachers, you get 13 weeks holiday a year, and you bully kids, and all of that nonsense that the jaundiced and less educated have. Even they would say, "What? No teachers? You're kidding
yeah,
me?" We're
yeah,
desperately here in Britain trying to get kids off mobile phones because we're starting to understand at certain ages that screen time, home or at school, is not good for them. Well, come back to mobile phones in a minute. And yet these other people are saying, well, let's get them more screen time and let's get them away from the interaction with adults. And
exactly.
it's just ridiculous. What annoyed me about this particular head teacher, she said, this is a direct quote, the teacher at the front of the classroom model is broken, she asserted. Is it really?
Nah,
I would argue, and obviously my frame of reference is Britain. I would argue that it's stronger now than it's ever been. I mean, I think back to when I was a kid at school in the 70s, early 80s, and when I started teaching, there were some great teachers, but there was a lot of dross, no
yeah,
standards at all. Some teachers just didn't do the job. They just didn't. They just eked out an hour of dictation or copying out books or whatever it might be. Standards were dreadful.
yeah.
The classroom, the guy or the woman at the front of the classroom has never been better and never been more important in my view. So yeah, teacherless schools, utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense. I am taking a point on what you just said about yes, teachers standing at the front. Last in my school last week we had 14 trainee teachers visiting us from South Korea.
All
Our
right. Yeah.
university has links with theirs, and they came into our secondary division. So my school's K'd through to university, and I showed them round, and then we had a Q&A, and one teacher, one of the ladies from Korea said, "Oh, I was so impressed when your teacher said, um, if you're not sure, ask your partner, and then if you're both not sure, come and see me." And she said, that still in South Korea, she says now that it's still the teacher lecturing at the front. So I totally agree. Even a little thing he did there was like, oh God, the teacher's now giving me the chance to discuss with someone else and then to get their input. They're not talking at the front. And how could how could AI have any connection with the student that an adult in the room could know about them, know what's gonna get them motivated and not motivated, and who to partner them with? I'm sure someone would tell me a programmer they could do it
Yeah.
scientifically, but no, it's human to human for me. And yeah,
In, Interestingly, about a decade or so ago, excuse me, there was a kind of move away from teachers talking, too much teacher talk.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was seeing targets being set to teachers to talk less. Now, if anything, schools are going back to the teacher is the main resource. The teacher
right,
is the main modeler. The teacher is in charge. The teacher is it. And there's nothing wrong with teacher talk. If it's expert, it's informed, it's engaging, it's humorous, it's detailed. There's nothing better than teacher talk. That's what you're there for. That if we're going to attract the best people from the best universities with the best brains into the profession, we want people that are experts in their subject and can talk confidently
Well,
about it.
exactly.
So
I said
it's just taken us it's taken this whole notion is just 180 degrees in the wrong direction.
exactly. I said to that lady, I was explaining to him about jigsaw activities.
All right.
And I said, but at the end of it, you have to come back to the teacher with the correct information. Because if you let them go too much and they're going down the wrong path and they're discussing something that's incorrect, then they're going to go off and that's going to go into a future assessment. So, as you say, you've got to come back with the knowledge person at the front, but they've just got to design properly. And as you're kind of saying, it's the personality of the teacher to engage. Yeah, some students we can't get through to. Some would rather be sat in front of a screen for the lesson. In my opinion, that most wouldn't. Most still want to come to you to talk,
Yeah.
to give their view, to hear your views, to put your
Yeah,
spin on things.
bit of both. I mean, lots of schools I go to have, laptops, MacBooks, and so on, and then
Yeah,
they're used well. They're great. They're great, but
yeah,
it's just you've got to get the balance right. There's going to come back to mobile phones. Sadly, I mean, obviously, the mobile phone issue has become such a big one in society with kids.
sure.
It is a pity in some ways that most schools now are completely banning them and having very significant restrictions on their use.
Yeah,
I get that. I have to support that. They know better than me about their schools and their kids. However, it is a kind of missed opportunity, really, that we didn't get on top of their use earlier. I mean, back in the days when I was still teaching, let's say geography, because I had the control over the kids and because you know I knew my kids and what they were up to and the
yeah,
parameters of how they would behave. We could use the mobile phones that they had in their pockets to research geographical locations, the latest earthquake or whatever it might be, far more quickly and at greater depth than they could on the clunky little cheap
yeah,
laptops that wouldn't
yeah.
turn on and took 5 minutes to boot
Sure,
up.
sure, sure. Yeah,
But I
yeah,
could get it. I could do that because I had the control and the trust of the kids.
yeah.
Obviously, too often that's not going to be the case, and they're going to be
No,
used for nefarious or the wrong purposes. So it's sad, really, that a piece of technology which is central to all of our lives, not just kids, let's be honest, we're all
yeah.
constantly checking our phones. We didn't get ahead of that and foresee the problems it would cause as a technology and use it to our advantage better than we have or did. And I think
Mm.
that horse has bolted now and probably isn't coming back to the stable, sadly. So
It is.
isn't it
And
interesting? Just when we're battling with that around the world, I would say in all cultures, children and screen time, we've got these progressive schools in America saying screen time. In fact, no adults, just screens. Weird.
yeah, brilliant.
So
Yeah, no,
that's
I take your point
definitely
on the phones.
definitely in
Take your
room
point on the
101.
phones.
Definitely in.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we wouldn't even, yeah, we'd laugh it into 101. Well, listen, yeah, thank you. I've really enjoyed that discussion on some up-to-date trends in education and to hear your views on them. And I hope if you've been listening that it's given you food for thought. And please like and subscribe and please comment if you see this on YouTube and email us at Terry and Olly Talk Teaching at Gmail. Is it podcast at gmail.com? I'll
No,
put it under
just at gmail.com. It'll be on the
Gmail.
end of the
Terrible.
videos. We got this. And we should say maybe in a subsequent video, you might come up with a list of your own.
Yeah, well, I think next time
You're going to
maybe
have
I
your
can
own
lead
ideas.
this.
These are clearly mostly mine, and you've been asking me about
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Let's go for
No, we'll do
yours
that
next
next
time,
time.
Ollie.
I'll come up with a list with a few gripes and we can discuss them and see what survives and what doesn't. But I think we've had a good chat there and I've enjoyed it. And I hope you've enjoyed listening. And we will be in touch and see you again very soon.
Okay,
Take
thanks,
care.
Ollie. Take care. See you now.
Cheers. All the
Bye bye.
best.